Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's VC Task Force Gary's Picks event for investors and startups. My name is Joel Rosenberg, Director of Business Development and Strategy for VC Task Force. VC Task Force is an organization where the venture community comes together to address critical issues, provide workshops and other events for the benefit of the venture and entrepreneurial communities. VC Task Force provides access to an extensive ecosystem of VCs, corporate VCs, and angel investors. You may ask questions anytime during the event, and time permitting, they will be answered live after today's interview. It is my pleasure to welcome Gary's Picks host, Gary Fowler. Gary is CEO and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, an award-winning growth stage AI venture studio. Gary is also co-founder of the award-winning AI startup Eva.ai, as well as the investment firm DY Investments. Today, Gary will be interviewing special guest Jay Cormier, founder and CEO of Eyedaptic. Eyedaptic is restoring vision with augmented reality and artificial intelligence. Eyedaptic is a software technology company addressing the large unmet need in the eye care field of retina diseases, initially targeting age-related macular degeneration. Eyedaptic's visually assistive solutions are based on the best open market augmented reality glasses. Eyedaptic's embedded proprietary simulated natural vision software optimizes the person's functional peripheral vision and is adaptive to the user vision limitation, as well as their habits and environment with machine learning, thereby giving them freedom to live their life. Jay brings a wealth of experience as a technology executive and entrepreneur with a track record of founding, growing, and turning around businesses with multiple successful exits. Take it away, Gary.
No, it's great to be here. Thanks, Joel. So got a question for you, Jay. We looked down through it. How in the world do you go from Worcester, Massachusetts to going to Los Angeles?
That's a great one. Well, first of all, Joel, thank you for the very kind introduction. And Gary, it's great to be here with you. And Worcester, Massachusetts, yep, that's where it all started. So I got my electrical engineering degree in Worcester. And as I was sharing with
Is it
Joel,
called Worcester or Worcester?
Well, if you're from Worcester, you say Worcester. If you say Worcester, you know you're not from Worcester.
I see.
So from there, I went into technology. And as I was sharing with Joel, worked for one of the major semiconductor companies back there on the East Coast.
Yeah, so you were at Analog Devices. You went on to MindSpeed. So as you're coming out with your bachelor's degree in engineering, I believe, right?
Yes.
And you're going down through it, Jay, and so MindSpeed was acquired by MACOM, correct?
That's correct.
How was it? So as you went from, with an engineering background into senior VP and general manager of a group, but then you migrated over to sales and marketing. How did you make that? How was that transition?
Right. So I guess I should probably fill in a little bit of the background. I started in engineering. I then went and got an MBA while I was working in Analog Devices. So while I was there, I did migrate over to the marketing side and then was running some fairly large teams and some of the most profitable businesses in the semiconductor industry. So I had some of that business background learned at Analog Devices. So when I came out to the West Coast, because it was just time to stop shoveling snow in Worcester, all right? I was already really in a GM role. And so I think that transition was kind of already well in place, but certainly going from a large public company to another smaller public company, but moving into that corporate officer role was I think, the bigger transition.
So was that from Analog to MindSpeed or from MindSpeed to Sierra?
So that was Analog to MindSpeed. Then I did a couple other startups after MindSpeed, all of them with successful exits. And that's how I kind of started to try some semi-retirement, which it turned out I was really bad at. And that's what led to Eyedaptic.
I got it. So what do you mean you were bad at semi-retirement?
Well, so I found that I still had way too much energy to be retired. And I was really thirsting for another challenge, but a challenge that would, a technology that would really help people. I saw a lot of technology in my career, but I also saw a lot of technology that just I thought really wasn't that useful. And I wanted to do something that was both useful and impactful.
So interesting. So when you were going down through, when these companies were being acquired, like when you Teridian and Sierra, how was that process? What was it like?
Well, certainly, as you well know, there's kind of the front end of that process, which is, let's just call it the diligence. But then, when you get to a successful exit, then the real hard work begins, which is the integration, right? And the integration is always, kind of can be gut wrenching because you built something, it's sort of your baby, and then you watch how someone integrates it. And what I learned is every company integrates differently.
And how was it? Do you stay with the company once they get purchased? Do you stay with it, or do you get one of those golden parachutes in 1 year? I remember one of my friends said that at Facebook, once you get acquired, you go up in the top. There's a lounge area, and basically sit around at the picnic tables for 2 years.
Yeah. So I think this was much more hands-on, but it did very much depend on the company what that integration looked like. Some want to keep you around for a while, some don't. Depends on the length of time. But the way I look at it is, part of the deal is helping with the integration. And of course, the integration is what the acquiring company wants to make of it. So, you have to be flexible and sometimes it doesn't always turn out great, but that's their call. They spent the money.
Yeah, no, that's great. And did you have celebrations once you got acquired?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's the goal. That's the finish line, right? And as I tell some of my people, a startup is not only is it a marathon, it's more like a triathlon because there's 3 different legs of the whole race, right? And that first leg is getting your technology to market. And it's nice now that Eyedaptic has done that, but that middle leg is really crossing the chasm. That's where Eyedaptic is now. Our customers are starting to buy. We've got strong product market fit, but you still got to scale to get across the chasm. And once you do that, you're really into the third leg of the race, which is, in a triathlon, that's the bike leg, and you have to go like a bat out of hell to get it over the finish line, which is the exit.
So how did you make the transition from basically doing optical and products, optical communications and products? How did you move into sales and marketing and business development? What was that transition like?
Well, certainly, I got a big taste of marketing and did plenty of marketing at Analog Devices. And what was especially interesting to me was really starting and growing these new businesses. And that's when you realize, hey, it's not about marketing as much as it's about sales, right? And you got to get out there and you got to get those first customers. And that's, just as much sales, if not more sales than marketing. And so a lot of that I put into the business development bucket because there is no customer proven yet. You got to find those customers and you got to dig them up by, quite frankly, whatever method is effective. And you just have to be really adaptable in that and how you find those people. So I put, all that marketing, sales, and business development in together, but there's, I think, 3 very distinct, how shall I say it, skill sets there. And I just found that was a very interesting problem. And when I got better at that, then of course, I felt like maybe I was ready to do my own startup. But that's, as you know, the ultimate test of sales, marketing, and business development.
Yeah, so you did that. You did Lentelis, and you spent about 2 years there. Then what made you decide to do, what's a strategic advisory role? What was that?
So I had worked with some of my past companies when, again, someone has an exit, they go and they finish up their integration, they go out on their own and want to do it again. And so I would, tend to come in that, marketing, sales, or biz dev role, whatever they needed, and kind of help them along with that process. Of course, knowing that I also have my own, ideas on the side that I'm working on. So, advising someone while you're having to fight those same battles, if you will, gives you a certain amount of perspective.
Interesting. So, going down through it, you've done the startups, you've been at a couple, how many companies were acquired under your watch?
I think there was 3 of those, if I remember correctly.
3 acquired. Well, so tell us, so what made you decide, go back to the Eyedaptic story. What made you decide, Jay, to go down through and form Eyedaptic, and how is it now doing your own company as compared to being part of a larger
Right.
group?
Well, great question. Thanks for asking that. Again, that's what Joel and I were talking about a little bit. After one of my exit was trying some partial retirement, wasn't particularly good at that. I still had a lot of energy, but at that same time, I was watching my grandmother go into assisted living because she had macular degeneration. Now, both my grandmother and great grandmother had macular degeneration. Very fortunate to live to ripe old ages, but I saw, them, they were sharp, they were independent, living on their own, and that loss of sight really is what stole their independence. So I was playing around with some augmented reality in a completely different use case and started wondering, I wonder if some of these really slick new augmented reality glasses could help with macular degeneration. And I grabbed my CTO who I'd worked with before, and we started kind of fiddling around. And of course, what we quickly found out is I know nothing about macular degeneration. So probably the most important day, I still say, after many years of the founding of Eyedaptic, was going out and finding what I thought I was looking for was medical advisors, and they turned out to be co-founders. Now, these were 2 retina specialists. So these are ophthalmologists, surgeons that operate on the back of the eye. And Dr. Metter and Dr. Kim, both great guys, but both had backgrounds in technology, interestingly enough. One was an undergraduate at MIT in software before he went into medicine. The other, a mechanical engineer from Columbia before he went into medicine. So smart guys, both doctors, both seeing so many macular degeneration patients day in and day out. And that's really where the magic started to happen, because they would bring in their patients on the weekend. We'd try out our latest technology. We'd see what worked. We were able to iterate quickly with the patient customer front and center.
That's interesting. So how do you go down through and build your company? What were the steps that you've taken so far to build your company?
Well, so first of all, and probably because my background is technology, first we focused on, can we build the technology, right? And that, again, entailed making sure it was effective for our users. But then it was still important, being essentially a med device company, even though this is an FDA Class 1 exempt device, you don't need FDA approval. We still felt it was very important to not only test our own assumptions, but also to have data to share with other medical professionals how effective our device was. So we then ran a clinical study with our device with independent optometrists to establish what we thought we already knew. And I think that was tremendously useful in building the company, because it does help solidify and validate what you're seeing, but also sometimes you get a few things wrong and it helps you fine-tune the product as well. So that was kind of, like I said, step 1 in that, or that first leg of that, race, if you will. And while we were doing that, we also started looking at, okay, now that we know that we have effective technology, how do we start building that, let's call it that marketing and sales machine? And that's kind of where we are now. We started off by testing our market, and then we followed up with, starting to build a sales channel. And that's kind of where we are now. But in the end, that the technology has to continue to evolve, but you also have to be evolving and building that sales channel, because both have to come together to be successful.
So where do you go down through and find talent? Where do you find talent to help build these incredible products?
Well, certainly, I would say at an early stage, finding people that fit is really tricky, right? So, and that I think is often best done with, quite frankly, personal connections, right? Because you're looking for talent that can do the job. I guess that is the definition of talent, but you're also looking for people that work well together, can really stick together as a team, and come together in those hard times, especially. And goes back to how I found those doctors. One was through a personal referral that I didn't even know he's an ophthalmologist. And once I figured that out, he actually made that introduction. So that was great. The other doctor, quite frankly, like any startup, there's an element of luck. I was at an ophthalmology convention. He was speaking. I approached him afterwards, and we started talking. And that's our chief medical officer today, Dr. Mehta. And I certainly could not have done it without him. So I got to say, there's always that element of luck as well. But it all comes down to personal introductions.
No, that's great. So what advice would you give startups out there, Jay, that are getting started on this journey? What are 3 tips that you would give them in terms of how to create a company and be successful with it?
Well, I would put it under the, not to be overly simplistic, the 3 tips are test, test, and test, right? First of all, you got to be testing your technology. And what I think a lot of startups do fall into is they get really focused on their technology, but at the same time, they got to be testing their market and channels, right? And what I find after being in technology quite a while is the time constant, or the time it takes to develop the market and channels, is often longer than it is to develop your technology, right? And so a lot of people, I think, feel like they got to build the product first before they can start testing the marketing and marketing channels and the sales channels. And I think that's flawed. I think you got to be starting those at the same time. And then the last test is, what do investors think? Because it's pretty hard to do a startup without investment. And you'll often find that the investors don't always understand the technology or the market channels either, but you still got to make sure you're serving their needs and, quite frankly, understanding what is important to them, because that has to be done in parallel as well. So if you're not testing those 3 aspects of your company from the very beginning, I think you can run aground.
And then, so what were the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome, and did you overcome them?
Right. So I think that the biggest early strategic decision we made was that we were going to focus on the software, the features, and how to make our products successful for these people with vision impairments. And part of that strategic decision was that we weren't going to be a hardware company and develop our own hardware, but take advantage of that best open market hardware. And I think to this day, we still feel like that was the right decision. But as we know, when we look out in the marketplace in general, augmented reality took quite a bit longer to come to fruition than anyone thought, right? And so, here's the glasses. This is our present product that we always imagined, but getting to those glasses that the customers love just took quite a bit longer than we expected. So we did a few things to adjust to that, Gary, that, out of necessity, but I think we built the company to be a very lean operation, knowing that we could not control absolutely the timing of that hardware. But what we could control is our burn and how we were able to time with the hardware. So what we did is really try to develop that software stack, that user interface in parallel and intersect it. And quite honestly, that just took longer than we thought. We didn't see a global pandemic coming, unfortunately, which not only caused further delays on the supply chain and augmented reality glasses side, but also shut down the global eye care industry nearly completely for about 6 months. So, sometimes those things happen. It's what you do in those times that matter. And I think, being adaptive, but being low burn too helps you adapt quicker.
Would you do it again?
Absolutely. The days that make this not only fun, but rewarding is when we have someone that's blind or legally blind, put on our glasses and get to go see their grandkids play lacrosse again, get to do their hobbies again, and basically help them live their life and make them and keep them independent, make it enriched. And, those are the daily things that keep you going to go, I know where we're going is the right place. I know this is a huge market, but yeah, there's some bumps in the road.
So, you've overcome, how do you stay positive, Jay, when you're building a company?
Well, certainly, going into it, knowing that it's not all going to be roses, right, and being realistic about that helps. Having a great team is part of that, because if you don't have some people that share that vision to kind of help pick you up when you're down and you help pick them up when they're down, then it's a real hard go by yourself. And I just don't think you can do it by yourself. And then again, like I said, it comes back to seeing what you're doing is truly impactful on a day-to-day basis really helps keep the motivation there.
No, that's great. So, it sounds like you're moving in the right direction. Let's talk about are you raising money right now?
So what I always tell people is we're always raising money, right? We're a startup. But it's an interesting place right now. We've got a bridge round that's half full, but it's especially critical because now what I see is we've overcome those technology hurdles. We're on the market with the best product, and now it's about scaling. And in some sense, what I tell my team is when you're scaling, the timing of the capital and how you get things done is even more critical. So yes, we're bringing in further funds to help that scaling process and continue to drive revenues upward, continue to impact more users, and continue to bring on more optometry practices to help get to those users.
How do you get to the optometrist?
Well, certainly the optometrist does come down to a lot of what I would call, again, personal connections. We're very blessed to have a strong investor base of doctors. And of course, they're very willing and able to make those personal connections. But it is, I won't say it's looking for a needle in a haystack, but you are trying to find in early stages of adoption those right practices that understand the technology, have the right patient base, and want to adopt something new. And so, that's just, again, comes back to business development. You do whatever it takes, but it is a lot of personal connections.
No, it sounds like you're doing a great job. Well, Jay, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today for Gary's Picks. To all you out there, my name is Gary Fowler, and I am the host. So stay tuned for another exciting edition coming up in another 2 weeks. Joel, closing thoughts?
Awesome interview. And Jay, I love what you're doing as we spoke earlier. The relevancy of this technology to the aging population, but also the relevancy of what you're doing in your experience to our audience is really interesting and very valuable. So thank you very much for participating today, and thank you both, and look forward to seeing everybody here back in 2 weeks for the next Gary's Picks event. Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Happy, safe, and healthy. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
See you later, Jay. Bye-bye.